about bridging the gender bias, but from a legal standpoint. So we're going to be unraveling the legal issues in addressing the gender biases that exist in India and worldwide. And we have for you all the most influential people in the legal fraternity, headed by, and my honor to invite, a prominent personality in the legal world and otherwise, Mr. Lalit Bhasin, the President of the Bar Association of India. The nodal point, the nodal association for legality in the largest constitution in the world. He's also the president of the Society of Indian Law Firms. He's also the honorary life member of International Bar Association. And if I start reading all his titles, yes. Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. It's an honor. I'd also like to invite the co-panelists joining Mr. Bhasin on this lovely evening. If I could invite Swati Mehta. Welcoming Swati, an advocate and obviously a gold medalist lawyer from the University of Delhi, amongst many, many other professional skills. It's an honor. Rohini Roy. Rohini? Bringing the glam to the legal world. Yes. Celebrating the femininity always. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. We're women first. The General Counsel of Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, what we know as a household name, BHEL. Manjari Chaudhary. Welcoming Manjari, the executive chairman of none other than SoftBank Energy. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not hearing you. If you want to be learning in this session, we have to welcome them.
Just for everyone, I am Manjari Chaudhary and I'm the General Counsel for Maruti Suzuki. I think the introduction.
Radhika Gupta. Welcoming Radhika. A well-established advocate from Delhi? Delhi. Ashok Agarwal. Welcoming Ashok ji. Also, yes, you guessed it, an advocate for social justice. Shweta Bharati. Welcoming Shweta Bharati, a senior partner at Hammurabi Firm and Solomon, a law firm based in New Delhi? Yes.
Good afternoon. First of all, my heartiest congratulations to Dr. Harbeen Arora for being given the unique award, the first Indian woman to get that award. You must have seen outside, the global award. Heartiest congratulations. And also for a sense of gratitude to Dr. Vinay Rai and Harbeen for organizing this. I don't call it an event because it is something much more than an event, you know. It is something which is the happening thing going on, and every year they put in place such a magnificent galaxy of very eminent speakers, majority of them being from are women, on different sessions. There are 3-4 parallel sessions going on. I don't know how they manage it, you see. We in the Bar Association also do some conferences, but you see we don't have such an attendance, such an energy also, and such an initiative. But today, fortunately, we have a galaxy of very, very eminent panelists here, and the ladies who are really doing great job, you see, are Manjari Chaudhary. She heads, you see, the legal department of Maruti Suzuki. I think no one here is oblivious as to what Maruti means. I think we must be using the cars also. If we have not used, we will use them in future also. Then we have Rohini Roy. She is the head legal department of Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, India's foremost company in the field of development of infrastructure. Then we also have Shweta Bharti. She heads, you see, she's the managing partner of one of the topmost law firms, Hammurabi and Solomon, a very eminent law firm of the country. Now to blend, you see, this experience with some young blood, we have 2 young budding lawyers. Swati Mehta, a very young, brilliant lawyer, and Radhika Gupta. Again, I think they could be treated as even law students, but they are doing a great job in their profession. But last and not the least, we have someone who's really devoted his life for noble causes in the field of litigation. He fights for the underprivileged. He fights for the children, their educational rights. He fights for women. He fights for the elderly people. And that is none other than Dr. Ashok Agarwal, who heads the organization called Social Jurist. And it is really a very commendable way of giving it back to the society. And we are all in the legal profession proud to have such eminent people like Mr. Ashok Agarwal. Now, have I missed out on someone? No. Of course, we do have Harbeen. Yeah. The topic is, you see, addressing legal issues in quest of gender equality. Now, I don't know why we need to discuss this, because gender equality is inherent. It is there in our constitution. There can't be a better safeguard than that there is equality. That is the essence of our constitution, essence of our fundamental rights, whether it is Article 19, Article 14, read with Article 21. It is all pervading equality. Therefore, women are not like second-rate citizens. Why do we ask for equality? They are equal, possibly more than equal. But I think this has some historical background. You must have heard of Lakshman Rekha. How did Lakshman Rekha come about? It was, you see, in a way to tell our goddess Sita not to go beyond certain things. It's a certain area, a line was drawn. And that line still remains drawn for the women of this country. Okay, you cannot go beyond this. So that is the Lakshman Rekha for you in all spheres of life. Therefore, regardless of whatever our constitution says, regardless of whatever our religious ideals say, but in practice, there will always be this Lakshman Rekha. And for those who have broken the glass ceiling, I think that is merely an aberration. It is not the rule. It is not the rule. And exceptions, they prove the rule. The rule is that men dominate. Men dominate in all spheres. So here now we have very distinguished panelists here to give their own views as to how they treat this subject. They will all be giving their own perceptions. So I would first request Swati to please come and address from the podium. Yeah, you tell.
Yeah, and because we are on a tight string of time, the bell will ring at 3 minutes, and then you have about 30 seconds, 40 seconds to wind up and be back. And then Mr. Bhasin will be asking questions after each of you have spoken. Is that okay? Thank you.
Okay. Come, Swati. Huh? What is the...
Well, do you want to sit here and speak and take your time? Okay, fine. That's
Okay.
fine. 3 minutes. Yeah. Okay. So your order. How would you like? Who would you like to go first? Okay, we'll proceed on from the left-hand side onwards. Here you go. Starting from the youngest first.
I don't think I'm the youngest here, but still, yeah, that's a compliment. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone here. I think, as we all are aware, gender inequality is something the entire world is grappling with, and India is no exception to that. As specifically speaking from the legal point of view, as Dr. Bhasin very rightly said, that our constitution safeguards the status of women. It provides us with the right to equality, equal protection before law, equal pay for equal work, etc. Also, the draftsmen of the constitution were very conscious of the status, of the declining status of women, I would rather say, and that's why they have themselves provided in the constitution that special provisions are to be made for the upliftment of women. Now, this has been done with an intent to create a level playing field between men and women. So special laws have been enacted, be it in the social sphere, such as the Domestic Violence Act, the Dowry Prohibition Act, and these days, even in the employment sector, we have new laws addressing problems of sexual harassment of women at workplace, and the very recent amendment to the Maternity Benefits Act, which provides for the option, to women to work from home. It provides extended maternity benefits. So, and of course, the Supreme Court of India from the very beginning has been the custodian or guardian of gender equality, and whenever felt that there are certain provisions in the rules which are ultra-virus or discriminatory, the Supreme Court has been at the forefront to strike them down. So the laws seem to be in place. Where exactly is the problem? I personally can share some experience. That is, I have come across, now, like I just mentioned, that we have a recent amendment to the Maternity Benefit Act, and I've come across employers who are hesitant to even employ women because they feel that they'll be incurring additional expenditure, paying for their maternity benefits, giving them unpaid maternity leave up to 26 weeks. Very recently, I read this article where it said that in Western Maharashtra, there is a region where women are employed in large numbers in the sugarcane plantation industry. But the only condition the contractors have is that these women in order to gain employment in that sector, need to undergo hysterectomies. That is, undergo surgery for removal of their uterus. Because these men stroke contractors feel that menstruation reduces the efficiency of women. So I think I need to wrap up quickly, but this is the appalling state. And that is why I feel that laws alone cannot do anything. They cannot do much. We need to change our mindset. We need to spread public opinion and public awareness. And that is where the role of representative groups, women groups, media, NGOs comes in. And it's for this reason that I would like to applaud the effort of the entire team of the Women Economic Forum, headed by Dr. Harbeen. And in the end, I would just like to conclude with the very apt phrase given by Miss Gloria Steinem, who said that a gender-equal society is one where the word gender does not exist. Everybody is free to be themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Swati. It is a very good and a different perception you brought out very clearly. Now, let us have the views of Shweta Bharti, how she thinks, you see, role of women so far as the legal profession or the judiciary is concerned. With her vast experience, I think we'll be able to get some very useful inputs from her.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Bhasin, for giving me this opportunity to address this gathering. I really feel humbled and honored. The topic that we are talking about here is a very intriguing one. Addressing legal issues in quest of gender equality. When we talk about gender equality, do we really mean the topic to be seriously implemented? Are we in a world where gender equality can be spoken about? Are we being treated equally at any point of time? If we go back to the history of Ramayana and Mahabharata, even then women were not treated equally. Dr. Bhasin had mentioned about the Lakshman Rekha. That Lakshman Rekha even today exists. It is correct. Sita had to go through the Agni Pariksha to prove a point of her piousness, of her sacredness. Draupadi also had to undergo a certain tribulation because of which the entire Mahabharata happened. So are we really talking about gender equality in real sense? If we look at the evolution of women, and I wanted to touch upon that, in law, in today's time, when you look at women like us, like the panelists, you would see a different category of women who have evolved, who had the opportunities, who fought their way through to become what they are today. But I take you back to 1916. Imagine the time when this lady called Miss Regina Guha, she had the aspiration to become a lawyer. She wanted to become a lawyer, and for which she passed her law from the University of Calcutta and applied to Calcutta High Court for her enrollment as a legal practitioner. The judges met at a special bench. Under the Legal Practitioners Act that existed at that point of time, any person, now the definition was any person, otherwise qualified is eligible to apply for such an enrollment. And under the General Clauses Act, a person is held to include both a man and a woman. Consequently, there was no legal impediment in the enrollment of a duly qualified graduate in law at the High Court in Calcutta. However, it was 1916. The Removal of Sex Disqualification Act was yet to be passed by the Mother of Parliaments, which it did only in the year 1919. So their lordships of the Calcutta High Court observed that it was perfectly true that both according to the etymological sense and the context of the Indian Legal Practitioners Act, the word person made a woman eligible for enrollment as a legal practitioner. However, the judges still said that the thing had never been done and they were not prepared to make an innovation. A full bench decision of the High Court delivered on 29th of August 1916 refused the enrollment of Regina Guha as a pleader. From 1916, we come to 1921. 5 years later, another lady called Sudhanshu Bala Hazra filed a petition before Patna High Court. The judges again observed there was no legal impediment in the enrollment, but in the view of the fact that Calcutta High Court in 1916 had held that such an enrollment was limited and confined only to the persons of the male sex, they could not make a deviation. At about the same time, another woman, and probably this woman was one of the first ones to enter the bar, Miss Cornelia Sorabji, she filed an application before the Allahabad High Court, which had the good sense to allow her to be enrolled as a duly qualified legal practitioner. The position thus had now become anomalous. While a women law graduate was duly enrolled and practicing law in Allahabad in the same manner as the men, women in Calcutta or Patna did not have this prerogative. And a barrister and champion of the cause of women, Dr. Hari Singh Gaur, he moved the government and in fact insisted that it should remove the sex bar which disqualified women from enrollment as law practitioners in Indian courts. And after a considerable debate and discussion on the issue, the Government of India passed the Bill of 21st of March 1923, which became a law on 2nd April 1923 and was enforced across India. So it was from 1923 till date, the Indian legal industry has witnessed an unprecedented growth, especially in the law firms, post-liberalization. And in the last decade, the legal sector claims to have transformed from a kinship-based partnership model to an industry, which is based on meritocracy, where it does not matter whether you are a man or a woman. We are looked upon as an individual and are judged as an individual. That is the ideal situation which we would have wanted to. But there still exists certain glass ceilings. We, as the legal practitioners in the industry, are trying to break that glass ceiling, and it will take some time for us to be able to do that. The good part is that at the moment in Supreme Court, there are 3 women judges sitting, and therefore it is looking like we are able to break that glass ceiling. Thank you.
Thank you, Shweta. You very rightly pointed out about the post-liberalization, the growth in the Indian legal profession, and particularly the role our lady lawyers are playing in this development, you see. My wife, Nina, is here, and she's already completed 40 years in the profession, and she makes sure that that there is a reservation for men in my office, you see, not for women. She would have been a participant, but she has some throat problem. She couldn't speak. So I now request Rohini Roy, who carries the burden, you see, of providing legal support to Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited in their multifarious projects all over the globe. So welcome, Rohini Roy.
I'll take the liberty of addressing you from here. I'm not very good with the podium. It makes me nervous. Good evening, and thank you so much, Harbeen and Vaseem, for having me in this gathering. I think it is at conferences like this where you get a chance to address more than just the person, and you can actually reach out to someone's soul and have a very candid approach to some of the very, very pressing issues of humanitarian considerations. So being the voice of women all around the globe is a very, very big responsibility to all of us. So I decided to do away with the little pointers that I'd written. I think the 3-minute timeline would not allow me to go into that. But I'll keep it short and straight from the heart. I think that I redefined my concept of what power truly meant back in 2010. My job, unfortunately, takes me to some of the world's most troubled areas and territories, and I'm often, negotiating contracts in Syria and Rwanda and different places, war-laden economies. It has been so very taxing to try and summarize my role, but since we started off on the point of mythology with Mr. Bhasin's Lakshman Rekha example, let me first start with what the definition of woman is in my limited dictionary, starting from the Indian roots. I think if those of you who are aware of the goddess Kali in the Indian mythology, goddess Kali has a very, very less known depiction called Chinnamasta. Chinnamasta is a depiction of goddess Kali with no head, where there are blood streams coming out of her body, 3 blood streams, one where she feeds herself, one where she feeds her children, and one with which she feeds the environment. I think this definition will summarize what women are and their role in society. And the fact is that one of these blood streams represents feeding her own mouth, the first, because the existence and the sustenance is most important. Unless we are able to sustain ourselves as entities, we cannot simply sustain any other race. We can't do life. And it's very important in today's context, because any woman who diminishes herself or feels the need to diminish herself is not going to be able to uphold what she stands for. So the first being sustenance, the second being feeding children who depend on her, and I think that there are many more that depend on us than just our children. And the third, the environment. So an all-round sustenance, and that is where my definition of power became different, because power for me is no longer just what it seems. It's the thing that we can never take away from ourselves. So in Syria, when I was negotiating a contract, I'd often come across these examples where men would tickle your palm when you did a handshake, because they wouldn't really care that you're here to negotiate a contract. They would look at you as an alien human being who was just here to either warm up their beds. I was even offered marriage, actually. I didn't know I was that pretty, but anyway. It so happened that the first time it shocks you, and the very next, you realize that they're not concentrating on any contract. They're actually concentrating on a completely different aspect of you. So it's very, very difficult to go to an economy, and then you see that there are people who are worse off than you, and that history is not just about empowering yourself, it's about empowering those who are around you. So today it shouldn't be really about my story. It should be more about what we've seen around. In these war economies, there are women who are used for no more than just as sex objects. And they are never, never looked at as entities who can sit across a table, have a dialogue like the one I'm doing with you. And it is so very unfortunate, because equality has nothing to do with feminism. And I'll leave you with this thought. Since I think my time's almost up, it would be wise to conclude on this note that women's rights and human rights, they're not different. It would be wise to know that equality is not having gender at all. It's having complete parity, complete unison, where there is no fight. We need to not be afraid. And feminism is not about hating men. It's not about fearing men. It's about rediscovering what power means to ourselves, and to actually have a classless society where the laws are not made on a specific gender. But this is evolution which has still not happened, not just India, but the world over. I think we are still evolving, and that process of trying to take out the classes in between men and women. So to me, this whole movement of gender equality, in summary, is actually rediscovering the feminism in men and the masculinity in women. And there shouldn't be a divide between the two races. Thank you so much for being patient.
That was brilliant, Rohini, I think. Very good exposition as to what feminism, you see, should mean and imply. So let's have now Radhika Gupta to please give her views.
Good evening, everybody. It gives me immense pleasure and privilege to be sitting here on the panel and addressing all these eminent people, and especially women who have been contributing not just in the field of work, but even at home as a mother, daughter, sister, and at work as a leader and as an employee. Gender equality is about giving equal rights in terms of opportunities to both men and women. And I would like to share a personal experience where in the legal profession, when I joined, I had the occasion to apply at a number of law firms and lawyers. And particularly this lawyer that I wanted to join, I was called up and I was told that because you're a female lawyer, there is no need to come for the interview. It came as a shock to me because my capability and my legal acumen has got nothing to do with me being a female or a male. And therefore, I had to really make a request that, I'm capable of working as a lawyer irrespective of my gender. And I think it was a mini achievement for me that I gave an interview and worked there, and they actually hired me for that position. So I think every person needs to be given that opportunity irrespective of their gender. Apart from there, in my law school, I worked for the Legal Aid Society, and I had the occasion to meet numerous women from not a very educated society. And I saw the number of problems that they had to face. They were not getting proper education. They were being underpaid. They were facing domestic violence. And that is when I realized that there was a wide gap between the law school books, which had a number of laws which had been enacted for women, but they were not really being implemented in the ground level. And therefore there's a need, and it is our responsibility that we are today here to be able to speak up not just for ourselves, but even for those who are not able to speak for themselves. And this world will become a more prosperous world if women are treated equally as a man and not taken as sex objects as they are done usually, especially in third world countries. And I sincerely believe that every time a woman stands up for herself, she stands up for the rest of the women's society.
Thank you. From a young person's perspective, very good. I'll now request our worthy panelist, Mr. Ashok Agarwal, to please make his presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Basinji. Friends, I would share two of my cases. One is that in 60s and 70s, there were hundreds of male and female workers working in Super Bazaar, Delhi, as a piece rate, as a packers on piece rate basis. And there was no discrimination in the pay. Both were paid equally. But what had happened in 1982, the management decided to grant them a regular pay scale. So what they did, en masse male were given higher pay scale, and en masse women workers were given lower pay scale. Then I invoked the provisions of Equal Remuneration Act and filed a case before the controlling authority. And controlling authority gave judgment in favor of the women. But in appeal, the judgment of the controlling authority was reversed. Then we moved to the High Court, and ultimately High Court reversed the judgment of the appellate authority and restored the judgment of the controlling authority. Though it took around 15 years, but women were paid and we won. This is one. And in a second case, a male teacher was working in a unaided private schools of Delhi, and his wife delivers a child, and he needs time to take care of the child and the wife. He applied for 3 months leave. The leave was rejected, paternity leave was rejected, but he went on the leave, he went on the leave, and his salary, from the salary, the money was deducted. Means for 3 months he was not paid. Then we moved to the court, to the High Court, and then management came there and agreed to pay back all 3 months' salary, and we won the case. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashokji. These are your, I know at least about 100 other instances where you see what you have achieved for the underprivileged people of our country. Thank you. And now we have the last panelist, a very eminent panelist, Manjari Chaudhary. She heads the Maruti Suzuki Legal Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bhasin, and my absolute honor and privilege to be here amongst such an august gathering. With kudos to Dr. Harbeen for putting such a wonderful thing together. This is the first one I've attended, and I'm absolutely overwhelmed, so very pleased to be here. The topic has more or less been discussed. The idea was to look at legal issues while addressing gender equality. My fellow panelists have already spoken about the fact that not only in India, but I think across the globe, if you see, sufficient and more laws are in place. People have had to fight very hard to get them there, but I think if we look now, barring certain pockets, if you looked at the more developed or even the developing world, the legislation is there, protections are in place, the Constitution provides for equality to men and women, which of course, does not understand gender inequality. Having said that, we have all those laws, but are those laws helping us? I mean, we still talk of gender inequality. So there is obviously something a little more to it than just the law. The law is a formal structure that a government or a country puts in place to protect its citizens. But there is the problem is far more deep-rooted to my mind. It has socio-economic and cultural context, deep-rooted stereotypes, which will not go away in a single day. And I'm not only speaking for India. I think this is, I've been, traveling across the globe. I've worked in different geographies, and I know that problems of similar nature are there as well. So I think, given the time constraint, I think I'd like to see that, we have to understand a couple of things which help. The first one is that women in this room are all empowered. There are many more like us who are also equally empowered. So my plea or my request to empowered women is that what has taken you to come here, make sure that you empower others around you. When you are in your workplace, where are you in your homes, in any sort of context, every opportunity you get, make sure that there is an empowerment and there is an equal opportunity for your fellow women. The other aspect that we need to address and to kind of, do away with the stereotype type is that at the natal home, at the level of the smallest unit of home, I think as women, we should try and see that we try and build that equality at that level. It is our duty to, build that mindset to make sure that our daughters and our sons are kind of treated equally. Those are the same boys and girls. If you kill that stereotype there and you bring about a sense of equality, the same men and women, they will grow up to be men and women of society, and it will take that same thought further and carry it forward. So I think that's a very important aspect. And the third, a very important aspect is that women as women, when you are fighting a stereotype, it is very important to keep your confidence, to make sure that you push forward. Oftentimes I have seen that, women start very well, but somewhere because of the circumstances and the pressures around you, and oftentimes there's a law, but you see something very different happen in front of you, and you feel rather disheartened, and you take a step back. Now, that is the time I feel that you should gather your courage and strength. Take a step back, take a deep breath, and tell yourself that I'm going to get there. It is all about your perseverance, your innate confidence in yourself, and the fact that if others can get there, you can get there too. It's not an easy battle. I can assure you, many times it is extremely frustrating, and I can tell you at even my level, I tend to feel very, very frustrated. Many times, I'm the first woman GC of Maruti Suzuki, which is a rather homespun, company. And my first question to them was when they were trying to hire me, and I have to give a lot of credit to them, because the chairman and the CEO for kind of breaking a glass ceiling. They hadn't even had a lateral hire in all the 35 years. Forget about having a woman, come up to top management. So I told them, you may not just be doing the right thing by taking me on. So I said, I'm quite used to working with men all my life, but I suppose your men will need to get used to working with me. So that was kind of brushed away in a very friendly banter and saying, no, everything we understand. So that's the point I'm coming down to, that yes, the laws are there. Nobody can discriminate against you legally, but unfortunately, when it pans out, you do feel the challenges and struggles, and it takes some time for others to get used to you. But you have to persevere, and you have to continue the struggle and the battle, and eventually it pays off. And I'm sure everyone sitting here, in some way or the other, this fact would resonate with all of you, and I'd leave you with that thought to take home as empowered women, and trying to, break that bastion of inequality, if we call it. Thank you.
Thank you, Manjari. I think that was a fitting finale to our discussions here. Now, before I request, there is an irresistible temptation, you see, that we must have Dr. Harbeen Arora also to speak on this, because I don't think she's alien to this talk about legal issues. She can speak on any topic. I have seen it, you see, during the last 3-4 years that I have been in touch with her and her very distinguished husband, Mr. Vinay Rai, that you can just give her the mic and ask her to speak on anything, and she will speak with authority, with clarity, with great confidence, which comes out of your sheer knowledge and commitment. So before I ask her, I'd just like to sum up, you see, and also recognize the role our judiciary has played so far as the equality, gender equality is concerned. And I take you back to the Vishakha judgment. Now, at that time, there was no law. The law came much later. But Supreme Court evolved that law by laying down in Vishakha judgment what should be the safeguards for women at the workplaces. Then, recently, and I think most of you are familiar, we had the triple talaq case, the LGBT case, the female genital mutilation case, you see. Remarkable judgment of the Supreme Court, and of course the restriction on women to enter places of worship. These are some landmark judgments which only pertain to the rights of women, which are given under the Constitution but never implemented. So now we hope, and I hope with a fond hope, you see, that yes, with these judgments, the law would be implemented not only in letter, but in spirit as well. So now I have great pleasure in requesting Dr. Harbeen Arora to please share her views with us.
Thank you, Lalitji. It's an honor really to be asked to speak on your panel, because I know I'm surrounded by experts, and I know I am treading on the fine line of time, but as you have so kindly asked me to share, I will share my humble bit. According to me as a layperson, I'm not a lawyer, how I see life is that there are I would suggest that there are 4 different approaches existing in our society that touch upon law. And law was always a healing profession, right? It was meant to stitch together conflicts. It was meant to bring people together. And so for me, the first based is the values-based approach in society, which we talk as dharam. So before law came, there was dharam. What is your inner dharma? What is your conscience telling? And aspire to the highest ideal. So the first was a values-based approach, right? The second that I see which evolved is a rights-based approach, which is the evolution of law. I studied in Paris, and they said that la loi c'est la droiture de l'homme. So it is the uprightness of a human being that law, like a spinal cord of a society, that law ensures, right? So we came to the rights-based approach, which is where in the Constitution, it is your right to be equal. It is your fundamental right to be treated with respect and dignity. So we moved from a values-based approach, which was individual, to a rights-based approach, which was legal. But slowly somewhere the rights-based approach deteriorates into an entitlement-based approach, where you have, instead of affirmative action, you have demands by everybody. Men feel very entitled to the body of a woman, for instance, or there are certain sections of society that feel entitled to, the quota system because of the political, the vitiation that has taken place. There's a sort of entitlement, and the energy shifts when it shifts from a rights-based, which is on the positive side, and on the side of truth, to an entitlement, which is a more grabbing. And the fourth, which is the most extreme form of denigration of the whole approach, is the oppression-based approach, where you use violence as a tool to put down the other side, which is what we see is happening in the case of women. So I think we need the legal experts to move the needle really from one extreme to the other. Is from the oppression-based through the entitlement back to the rights-based with inspiration of the values-based. And I can't imagine a better panel than this to do that.
Thank you, Harbinji. I think you have proved the point, which I tell everyone, that every woman is a born lawyer. So you are not alien to this, you see. You expressed yourself so well. And
thank you.
Thank you very much.
I request, without, sorry, we're running short of time, so I'll just go straight to it. I request Dr. Harbeen Arora to give away the awards. I will request our moderator, Sir Lalit Bhasin, to please join Dr. Harbeen Arora in giving away the awards.
Nina Bhasin ji, I would request you to join me and Lalit ji on the stage, please, to present the awards to our panelists. Thank you so much for being here.
Swati Mehta, Exceptional Woman of Excellence. Rohini Roy, Exceptional Woman of Excellence. Manjari Chaudhary, Exceptional Woman of Excellence. A big round of applause, please. Audiences, please. Radhika Gupta, Exceptional Woman of Excellence. Ashok Agarwal, Exceptional Leader of Excellence. Shweta Bharti, Exceptional Woman of Excellence. together for a picture. All the panelists kindly get together for a picture.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for this amazing panel addressing legal issues. Some of the most brilliant people in the legal house of India. A big round of applause.